we give you just a brief summary of what we did last week on Joy Change Speaker Series, where myself and Dr. Mame Abena Mensah Bonsu hosted 6 persons to share their views on the need to amend the Constitution. Just some 3-2 minutes each of those persons who spoke, just to bring your mind back on the issue.
Our institutions against partisan political manipulation, to fight corruption, and to enhance trust through transparency. In Tufo, an Attorney General reported in the 1980 Ghana Law Report at page 637. So what J. as he then was, speaking for the court at page 647, stated that a written constitution such as ours is not an ordinary act of parliament. It embodies the will of the people. It mirrors his history. He goes on to conclude. It contains within it aspirations and hopes for a better and fuller life. It contains within it their aspirations and hopes for a better and fuller life. I must hasten to add that I am not unaware of the existence of views of other people who think and believe that the Constitution, being a living document capable of growth, coupled with the fact that constitutions are normally skeletal frameworks, it should be left to the province of the courts to provide the ingredients that will ensure its growth through the utilization of the interpretative jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. The chief proponent of this view appears to me, in my humble view, to be the President of the Republic of Ghana, who has cautioned campaigners for constitutional reforms to hasten slowly. Festina lente, he says. The President did not, however, make haste slowly when he decided to appoint a record number of judges to the apex court of the land, even in the face of an existing caution by the African Peer Review Committee against packing the courts. And I just heard Mensah Bonsu say that, ask a question, can we trust our Supreme Court, our courts? Moreover, the recent reversal of the Supreme Court of the United States of America of the decision in Roe and Wade does not give campaigners like myself comfort. It is my considered view that a political solution to the perceived weakness of the Constitution is the way to go. So there is the need to trigger Chapter 25 of the 1992 Constitution. I therefore vote for constitutional reform. To conclude, my people in Dabong, the Dogombes, have a saying which loosely translates as, the fact that you cannot do all, you cannot accomplish all, should not prevent you, should not stop you from doing some, from accomplishing some. Thus, if a total overhaul, as canvassed by
clearly the essential elements which constitute our aspirations from the preamble include blessings of liberty, equal opportunity, prosperity for the people, freedom and justice, property and accountability, universal adult suffrage, and the stability of our great nation. It is evident that after 3 solid decades of operating this document, several of the aspirations have eluded the good people of Ghana. the state of affairs now. Our country is yet to derive the dividends of democratic governance, and I think I heard the other day that the president of Zambia was also saying the same. The conduct of peaceful elections and the successive transfer of power have been used as an indicator of success of our democracy, without evaluating the actual improvements in the lives of the people. And that makes me look at your the title of your program today, which says, "If you do democracy, we go chop." So there's without evaluating the improvements in the lives of the people in the area of education for every citizen, access to basic social amenities such as water, electricity, affordable housing, infrastructural development, housing, jobs for the youth, political accountability, reduction in corruption, and economic stability. What we have to show for 30 years of democratic governance is massive levels of youth unemployment, excessive powers of the executive arm of government, as your previous speaker said, Alhaji Musa, a grossly compromised parliament, abuse of power, unbridled corruption, waste of Ghana's resources, nepotism, mediocrity, mismanagement of the economy, and the constant failure of leadership.
Much of the growing public frustration and disenchantment with governance in Ghana today come from the shortfalls in practice democracy. Our democratic practice is increasingly exclusive, divisive, and extremist, and is hampering economic progress. Most observers attribute the condition of exclusion, division, and extremism to the winner-takes-all electoral system, which is monopolized by two political parties, the NPP and the NDC. In this duopoly, a party winning elections, even with 1 percentage point, takes complete possession of the state, from the national to the local levels. The politics of exclusion, which is embedded in the winner-takes-all system, is perhaps the key reason for the heightened, unhealthy rivalry between the NDC and the NPP. The rabid partisanship has led to any party in opposition having to simply oppose and discredit the government of the day. It has led to the disgusting habit of claims and counterclaims over who built this road or that school. The unhealthy rivalry has led to the abandonment of projects initiated by preceding governments, irrespective of their relevance and how much has been sunk into it. Above all, it has led to short-sighted approach to development. Meanwhile, political party organization and electoral politics have been highly monetized. They have become a game for the rich and corrupt, as admitted publicly by some failed candidates. Votes of delegates at party primaries are bought, and the highest bidder often wins. At the national level, presidential candidates sell themselves with gifts and phantom promises. Needless to say, the cost of participation and the embedded corruption, even appointment to institutions classified by the Constitution as independent, are to be made by the president, who is a partisan. Yet, we expect these bodies to be neutral. So apart from the so-called independent bodies, the Constitution places no limit on numbers and levels to be appointed. This loophole and the discretion to create ministries and agencies at will enables self-aggrandizing presidents to indulge in creating additional positions.
Our Constitution, PNDC Law 282, has lost the capacity to generate a framework for justice or to secure for us the blessings of equal opportunity and prosperity. Its soul and spirit have been compromised by a generation of greed and decay. For 30 years, we have, with the complicity of the 1992 Constitution, built a society that thrives on exclusion and violence. A republic where soldiers can walk into and brutalize an entire community because one of them lost his yam food. Where our military, with the blessings of our president and his appointees, descend on the community with the heavy machinery our taxes paid for. to slash and maim over 2,000 people in Ashama because one of their own had been killed by thieves. And when they are done, they go to national TV in front of an impotent president and demoralize people. Where those with access and privilege, members of the ruling class, call the military secretly to congratulate them for unleashing their terror and inhumanity on us. And yet our constitution keeps silent. Speak if you are alive. Protect us if you are not dead. When those charged with giving life to a constitution can look the other way, as so many of our people hunger and die without any sense of obligation or shame, when Ghanaians are killed at will and randomly with impunity from Ejura to Techiman, when our existence as citizens is only tolerated by a political class that has not yet found a way to enrich themselves by getting rid of us, where our cry for the freedom and justice our fathers promised us is mocked, how dare you tell me that this is a constitutional democracy? We are living in an era where the pensions of our fathers and the toil of our mothers is at risk because our government will rather borrow to enrich themselves and their cousins and pursue grandiose cathedrals of doom. Where our schools are being deprived of investment and our hospitals are running out of vaccine. Where young people have no jobs. All public sector jobs are either reserved for political party foot soldiers, depend on protocol, who you know, and payment of bribe. Yet we pretend to not notice all of this.
I'm going to draw out the lines I see between what you were saying and what Brigitte was saying, for instance, that we talk about the peaceful transfer of power and the number of elections, but not the impact of the Constitution on the lives of citizens. And that is the true measure, really, of any constitution's achievements. And as one of those who have several times mentioned the age of the Constitution, I should point out that there are those who value that which is old for being old's sake. But when I talk about the age of the Constitution, what I am celebrating is the length of time in which we have not lived under a gun and what that does for you as a people.
About Article 71, and we are all talking about it. What a crazy train it is that people get fast money at the end of every cycle because they are deemed to have retired and come back to office. Where in the Constitution are the numbers dictated? No. The Constitution says there should be a commission that should determine the terms and conditions and emoluments of certain office holders for a specific term of for a specific period, 4 years. What has the political class done? They have deferred it. Although the Constitution effectively demands that it starts when a term starts, they defer it to the end of the term. So that by the time the commission is appointed and does its work, there's very little time for public debate. So it goes to the president to approve of the parliament, and it goes to parliament to approve for the executive, wrap my back. They agree on fat amounts of money, for the most part, as back pay, and then pensions. And so everybody who fits Article 71 place, once the back pay is calculated, makes the back pay. And we, as the people, can't insist that a president who comes to power must immediately set up the committee, for the committee to give the figures, for there to be enough time for the people of Ghana to be able to debate it, and not at the midnight of power. And we can't do something as simple as this. We can't tell the president that set up the committee now to determine now what your emoluments are, instead of, quote and unquote, stopping what was prepared for your predecessors, in the hope that when the committee is set up in the next couple of years, times would have changed. It will recommend increases in your salary. That new increased salary will be used to calculate your back pay and your pension, so you go away and join the gravy train. And we can't do this. And we think that simply amending the Constitution will resolve this. Let me move on to the number of Supreme Court judges. I hear it all the time. And I agree. Maybe the framers should have provided a cap. But maybe they expected us to be sensible and reasonable. That we want to give you a cap because things might change. And we don't want you to be stuck in a situation where you have to amend the Constitution every time that the situation on the Supreme Court changes. And look, we give the U.S. as an example, 9 judges. But the U.S., through their in limine proceedings, determine how many cases the Supreme Court is going to hear anyway. The vast majority of cases don't get heard. And Supreme Court does not have that benefit. In all of its jurisdictions, original, appellate, special, there are about 6 of them. In all of them, the Supreme Court must sit and hear the matter. Who has done the math? What's the volume of work? How many pages are these people reading? How many judgments are they produced? What is the work in progress time from filing to decision? How long does it take? Why is it taking 3 years for a simple constitutional challenge to be heard? Is it because we think the judges are simply lazy? Is it because we don't have enough judges? Or is it because they are swamped with work? Nobody is doing the heavy lifting. We just want to make the noise. Provide a cup. So the cup might be too wide or might be too small. But we need to roll our sleeves up and ask, why is this going on and what can we do? Well, why not? Let's amend the Constitution and provide a cap. Because we think that amending the Constitution is a simple answer to all our problems and a simple refusal to think, roll up our sleeves and do the heavy lifting. Let me end with this. We want to amend the Constitution. Let's get ready. And I believe in constitutional amendments of Constitution. And the thinly veiled threat of some other change, well, let us cross or blow that bridge if we ever get there. But between now and then, I think that we need to form our own CDC. The CDC, which is either Committee for the Defense of the Constitution or Constitution Defense Committee, where a number of people in this country will say, let us defend this document that we have put down from these executive tricks and judicial tricks, where they do everything in their power to breach the Constitution. If they make any wrong move, we are either making noise in their ears or we are taking them to court for there to be judicial determination on this issue. Whether we win or not is another thing.
And he's very right that Parliament actually carries a lot of the blame for the things that don't work well in our Constitution. Because no Constitution can provide for everything. And if it did, it would create a robotic people if it was successful in doing so. At some point, there's a meeting between text and people, their choices, their discretion, the things that they prioritize. Yes, the ordinary rural Ghanaian may not be in a position to hold their parliamentarian accountable, and that is a problem. That's one of the problems that Oliver identifies with our Constitution. That and as Bridget was saying, the impact on human lives. But there is a class of Ghanaians who could and should and don't. So when Ace talks about how it took civil society rising up to tell the Attorney General, it's right. He's right. Civil society did that. But civil society ought to do that. That is civil society's role. There's nothing particularly impressive about civil society having to do that, because democracy is a three-way pact between the state, its agents, and the people whose power they are exercising. So yes, Parliament is to blame for a lot of our problems, for the practices that don't allow for accountability, for not ensuring things that they've been empowered to do are done.
This is a defining moment in our political history as a country, and we should be quite rightly proud of how far we've come. Our achievements are monumental, and Ghana's reputation all over Africa as a beacon for democracy is very well deserved. We've held 8 democratic elections. And Ghana's reputation all over Africa as a beacon for democracy is very well deserved. We've held 8 democratic elections. Elections have been keenly fought, but the outcomes never preordained. And even though they are intensely fought, the winner is always magnanimous. The opposition always accepts the outcome or uses constitutional means to challenge the outcome, generally speaking. Let me also highlight that our economic performance over the last 30 years under democratic rule is superior to the 30 years prior to democratic rule. So in spite of all of that, all these good things that we have achieved as a constitutional democracy under this 4th Republican Constitution, it is indisputable that we live in a time of restlessness, discontent, with a unanimous clamor for constitutional amendment that will ostensibly solve all our problems. However, let's also make sure that the amendment actually cures the ills we want to eradicate as a society. We are all keenly aware of the many problems plaguing us. And we are also aware that many of those problems will not be resolved by constitutional amendment. We have a plethora of laws in this country that we flout with impunity. Ace has just talked about some of them. At every level, at the political level, at every level, ordinary people, we flout laws with impunity. What is to say that a new constitution will be something different? Which constitutional reforms, new laws are needed to ensure that people who are already paid to deliver government services do not extort arbitrary fees before providing those services to citizens? Do we need constitutional reforms before, for instance, we sanitize our airwaves? Currently, we don't vet anything that we show that is aired on TV or radio. We have fed a whole generation of young people a steady diet of movies and telenovelas. We promote immoral and unethical content, undesirable values. And we see the results, because what you feed the brain, you will reap. Is what you put in is what you get out.